Liz Truss has 3 hours to save her premiership. We have Kwasi Kwarteng. We think he's just gone in the back entrance of Downing Street for a showdown meeting with Liz Truss, in which he very much might end up losing his position as Chancellor. A U-turn was agreed while Kwasi Kwarteng was in the air, done and dusted pretty much at the time that BA jet touched down at Heathrow, an hour and a half ago. And now Kwasi Kwarteng entering Downing Street in order to discover his fate amid claims that he is about to be sacked. Sacked in a way that some of his MPs worry will look like a scapegoating for decisions that Liz Truss made, promises she made during her leadership contest. We are expecting, potentially within hours, Liz Truss at a press conference to announce that she is U-turning again on her mini-budget, this time potentially ditching her promise to freeze the corporation tax rate, allowing it to rise, allowing more cash to flow into the Treasury coffers in order to try and get down the amount of money that Britain has to borrow in future after an enormous borrowing spree in the first 5.5 weeks of her entering government that have spooked the market, put up interest rates and prompted a political as well as an economic crisis. We could find out about the future of the Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, potentially within hours. We will also all be able to judge in an early afternoon press conference with Liz Truss whether she can save her own premiership, which right now is on the line. Liz Truss is having to fight for her political survival because the ideas she is spinning were hers. She thought of them. She got a Chancellor to do them. She defended them as recently as Wednesday in the House of Commons. Her officials were issuing statements as late as 8 o'clock this morning, saying that she trusts the Chancellor, has full confidence, is working in lockstep. Now she's going to have to swallow not only one bad decision, bad because she's having to U-turn on it, but she's going to have to somehow signal an entire change of approach. She might have to find a new Chancellor. That Chancellor could be somebody completely different, maybe a Jeremy Hunt figure. We don't yet know. But she will also have to promise that never again will she create the turbulence and the disruption that she very much made the trademark of her premiership. She signalled it during the campaign that she was going to do it, and very much we've seen that turbulence come true despite all the warnings from her rival Tory MPs during the leadership campaign. She's got to promise and credibly commit to never allowing that situation to happen again. It's going to be incredibly challenging. At this press conference later today, Liz Truss is going to have to announce the scale of the U-turns from the mini-budget 3 weeks ago. She's going to have to convince the markets that she can now be trusted after weeks that have put Britain's credibility on the line in a way that hasn't happened in decades. She has got to convince her own MPs that when she sacks this Chancellor and finds a new one, it is them it's that switch that stabilises things rather than her being the problem, against a backdrop where this man was not the only problem viewed in the markets and amongst Tory MPs, but actually it's the Prime Minister herself, her instincts, her decisions, her insistence on doing things differently that has been one of the main drivers of the turbulence that we've seen that's led us to this point. Can Liz Truss do all of those things at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock this afternoon, and a very, very important day in the premiership of Liz Truss? We are already talking about her battling for survival when she hasn't even been in office 6 weeks. Those were the gates of Downing Street. The press conference takes place on the right. That's the front door of Downing Street, a hive of activity this morning as officials going in and out to try and prepare for what's coming next. It's quite clear to me that the Treasury, in the end, slightly left floundering in the last couple of days as Number 10 took back economic control of the big decisions in this government, and they set the pace, reversing things in the mini-budget. It was advice to the Prime Minister direct. It was discussions in Downing Street, not the Treasury, that have led to the moment where we now expect corporation tax, corporation tax policy to be junked, and Liz Truss in Downing Street, which you can see behind those gates, to be announcing that herself later today, with a big question about whether or not she can do that credibly. But what's her plan to fix it? And will her plan be good enough to reassure the people in Parliament, which you can now see behind you, just beyond the War Memorial? Can you see them supporting her at this tricky time in her premiership? So much uncertainty. The big political challenge is whether or not voters will ever come back and the markets will ever regard Britain as less risky with her in charge. Voters, in many, many cases, thinking not just she made one bad decision, but are actually now genuinely questioning whether or not, she hasn't undermined the Tories' core reputation for economic competence, something so much more difficult to put behind. A van there leaving Downing Street. It's a furniture van. I'm not sure Kwasi Kwarteng wants to see furniture vans going in and out of Downing Street at this point. Dare I say, some might think it looks a little bit like a removal van. Too early to say. It's a fast and moving situation. But what's certain is that very, very soon we're going to find out about the future of Kwasi Kwarteng. We think, from photographers passing on information, that he's gone in the back door of number 10. There he is. I think that's the back of number 10. Not a happy face from Kwasi Kwarteng. There he is, still as Chancellor, but the question on everybody's lips in Whitehall is for how much longer, as he goes back to discuss the U-turn agreed while he was out of the country and find out whether Liz Truss still wants him as his Chancellor. Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, very, very close political bedfellows. The two of them have worked together incredibly closely through the leadership campaign. He was working with her even when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. The two of them formed a little cabal in the cabinet on things like Northern Ireland policy, Brexit policy, and together they fought for her to become Prime Minister. And now, almost without us even hitting the 6-week anniversary of this government, it looks as if he's getting out of that car to go into Downing Street, potentially to lose his job. Maybe to another cabinet role, possibly to the backbenches. As it turned out, the turbulence between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor just became too difficult. There have been so many disagreements just in their first 5 weeks, whether it's on whether or not to scrap the top rate of tax. Liz Truss publicly blaming Kwasi Kwarteng on telly for the decision to do that policy in the first place, when that was scrapped in the middle of a Conservative Party conference, whether it was policy on the Bank of England, whether it's which civil servant should run the Treasury. There is just a litany of things that we know about, that I know about, that we've talked about on Sky News, have been the tensions between Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. Now it appears coming to the head over junking in large part the mini budget, the exact details of which we are going to find out later today. But we believe it includes the decision not to rise corporation tax. Corporation tax will now rise. We will find out very soon whether the man you're looking at going into Downing Street is going to be in the job in a few hours' time.